Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. Well, before we get started in this episode, which is going to be entitled What is Truth? I just want to point out to those of you who are watching on YouTube that I'm dressed in somewhat patriotic attire. And there's a reason, because this episode is being presented on the inauguration day of President Trump and JD Vance. So I decided I would dress a little red, white, and blue today. And if you're not watching on YouTube yet, head over to YouTube. If you want to watch me in action and my Italian hands and moving around and fixing my hair and fiddling around, you should go to YouTube. It's a different sort of experience. You might as well check it out. Anyway, so that being said, let's move on with this episode today. So I decided that since we are going into a new phase with President Trump and Vice President JD Vance, I just keep flubbing up their names. Come on, Lori, get it together. It's just that I haven't been saying it yet. So now that I'm going to be saying it all the time, I'll get my act together. So it just got me to thinking that we have been living in a certain sort of way for the past few years. And without throwing anybody under the bus, I'm just going to say it like that. And, we've all been kind of walking on eggshells for the past few years. We have been very hesitant to say our opinions. We have been very hesitant to be proud that we're Catholic, or proud that we're Christian, or proud that we have a heterosexual marriage, or proud that we are living a traditional life. And anytime we might have had an idea that might be different than what we thought the masses were thinking, we were silenced. We were told we were going to be canceled, and many of us were. You couldn't say anything that you actually felt. You had to switch all your thought process to pacify the mob, as I will call it. And it's been a very strange way to live. We had COVID, which was strange enough, switching how we lived our lives. We were all in that together. It was a global pandemic. It wasn't like just something going on in California or something going on in Germany. It was the whole world. And we were all kind of sucked into that together, weren't we? And so on one hand, that was an interesting concept because we were all in it together. So we were being understanding of what we could and couldn't do. However, we were told we must do XYZ. And I won't get into all the things that we were told we had to do. There were many. There were many things we had to give up. There were many things we were told we could not do, absolutely not at all. Some people were arrested. Some people were fired. Some people definitely lost their family members. Some people missed their family members passing away because they were given restrictive rules that you could not break. And we all, for the most part, adhered to those. And now that I look back on that, I think there were some brave souls that kind of just thought, no, I don't think this is right. And I'm going to do what I think is right. And I'm going to lead my life how I should. And boy, were they attacked for it. And I look back on that time now, and for the most part, I'm a rule follower. As that's kind of my personality. If I'm told to do something, I will generally do it. And so I followed the rules. I very begrudgingly got the vaccine. I felt pressured and pushed into doing it. I felt that if I didn't get the vaccine, I was going to lose my job. And I feel like other people that didn't get the vaccine at my job got fired, or were asked, if they weren't going to take the vaccine, that they would quit. I don't know the circumstances. I just know that they were no longer there. And that certainly didn't set well with me because my body and my condition are very important to me. I have medical conditions that I have to be very mindful of, and so do a lot of people. And I don't think it's right when you get pushed to doing something that you're not really wanting to do. So, anyway, I look back at those times and I think I feel like COVID, that time, kind of changed everybody's mindset and changed the way everybody was doing everything based on COVID, based on the restrictions. But also, I feel it caused people to become very vulnerable in every way, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and spiritually. I think it weakened a lot of us in those ways. I feel people weren't being allowed to do their normal things, and it messes with a person's brain when they're not able to see their family members or get a hug or a kiss or interact with people face to face or just get out and get fresh air. The fact we were all like this, and I'm putting my hand over my face for those who aren't watching, you're only seeing somebody's eyes, that became a problem. It's hard to understand people. You can't read their lips if you have a hard time hearing. Children certainly suffered because they couldn't see our expressions. I mean, we all know we all suffered in that time, but I feel there was some definite misguiding and definite manipulation going on then. And it was hard to know who to trust. And I've talked about in other episodes about trusting people, like, say, a one on one trusting of someone. I've certainly been bamboozled by people. I've been conned. I've been lied to. I've been cheated on. Um, and that is one issue when you're dealing with people on a one on one instance and you don't know who to trust. Now, it's interesting because I'm kind of a tough sell on some things. I am very suspicious of people, but for whatever reason, I also fall for people who are lying to me and people who are cheating on me or cheating me. And I'll believe people because I want to believe the best in them. And I think, oh, they would never lie to me. They would never hurt me. I believe what they've said. They seem sincere. And I know when I'm sincere or when I'm telling somebody the truth, I mean it. I don't lie. Now, I also don't maybe say something that's hurtful and harmful to somebody just to say it. I am very forthright. I am very clear in what I'm saying. And if you ask me a question, I will answer you. That's going to be more the person's fault for asking me a question, and I give them that disclaimer. If you want the answer, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to lie to you. So, not everybody's like that. A lot of people lie to get their way. A lot of people lie to manipulate people so that they benefit from whatever lie they're telling. And I just think this is something we all have been sucked into. And I think it's been in different levels. I think there's been personal lies. I think there's been lies on a global stage, which is the pandemic. And I'm not saying there wasn't a pandemic. I'm not saying people weren't sick and dying. I'm saying that I believe that it was made into a way bigger thing. I think people had hidden agendas to begin with, and then not so hidden agendas later. As we kind of got deeper and deeper into it, it was like, oh, so let's see, the pharmaceutical companies benefit if we're all having to take these vaccines. Oh, these people are benefiting because, you know, other jobs are being highlighted and other jobs are being taken away. I mean, there was many agendas there. And, you know, there was conspiracy theories about the election that people started the pandemic idea so that it would mess up the election. I don't know. I don't get into conspiracy theories, and I'm not going to get into that today. I'm just saying I think that there was a lot of lying and deceiving going on. And I don't think that there's many people today that, especially maybe in the camp or in the lane I'm in, agree that it would needed to be as out of control as it was. And then the whole woke thing came in. And if you want to hear a very educated episode I did with author Noelle Maring, she wrote a book, Awake Not Woke, and I did a whole episode on it. So go way back to 2 years ago and check out that episode because she's very learned in this subject. And it was very eye-opening to me, the whole woke culture, which was just very intense at that point when she wrote that book and came on my episode. And, we all just kind of got swept up in this stuff. We had the trans agenda, we had the BLM riots, we had COVID. I mean, everything was just very out of control. And I would say very chaotic, very explosive, very violent. Um, it was very odd to be an American and not be able to have your own thoughts and feelings. I didn't feel we had, um, what's it called? Freedom of religion, freedom of speech. I didn't feel we had any of that. I feel we've had none of it in years. And it's all been just very troubling to me. And so I was thinking, what does this remind me of? And how did I come up with the title? Um, Now I'm lost my own title. Oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted. What is truth? That quote comes from Pontius Pilate to Jesus. When Jesus was arrested and the angry mob was chanting to crucify him, and Pontius Pilate says to him, "What is truth?" Now we all know Jesus is the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. So when we come back, I'm going to bring Jesus into the mix. Be right back. Have you ever wanted to witness the miraculous and walk where saints have walked? This is your chance. Join me, Lori Balderas, host of Fresh Catholic Podcast, and Father Matthew Miguel, as we walk with you through Italy's most sacred sites. From the Eucharistic miracles of Lanciano and Orvieto to the peace of Assisi, your heart will be transformed by these extraordinary moments of grace. You'll walk the hallowed streets of Rome, step into the history of the Vatican, and witness the places where faith has flourished for centuries. Each stop deepens your journey. Each miracle renews your soul. We invite you to join us on an unforgettable, life-changing experience.
Join us and let your faith come alive in Italy.
And we're back. So, like I was saying before, very chaotic last few years. I was saying that the title of this comes from Pontius Pilate when Jesus was arrested. And it got me to thinking that, a lot of people don't want the truth to be out in the world. They live in darkness. They live in the dirty little corners of the world where they're just scrounging around, doing their dirty deeds, doing things they shouldn't be doing, not following the Lord, not following the 10 Commandments, not doing what they know to be right. And it just got me to thinking that back in Jesus's day, imagine Jesus, our beautiful Jesus. He couldn't be more truthful. He couldn't be more honest. He couldn't be more good and holy and amazing. But He was such a threat to everyone around him. Not everyone. A lot of people loved him. A lot of people believed him. A lot of people followed him. Kind of sight unseen. He would say, "Follow me," and they would literally drop everything to follow him. Why? Why would they do that? They don't know him. He's just, some of them, John the Baptist knew him because it was his cousin, but why would these people follow him? Well, because he was radiating goodness. He was the Lord. They didn't know that. They finally came to figure it out. But he had that sense about him. He was to be trusted. He was very knowledgeable. He knew things that other people didn't know. If you go back in the Bible, there's so many quotes by different people, by demoniacs, by people who were sick, by people who would come to seek him out. And they would say, "Oh, we know who you are. You're the Son of God." I just thought that was amazing and beautiful back then. But what did that do? That caused the Pharisees, the scribes, the elders to feel very threatened by Jesus. Who is this person? Why is he coming in and trying to change things? He's saying he's God. He's saying he can forgive sins. He's performing miracles. He's raising people from the dead. He's ridding people of leprosy. Who is this person? He's a magician. He's the devil. He's Beelzebul. Come on. They were saying everything they could about him because they wanted everybody's mind to change. So even the people that were witnessing Jesus for themselves, in his presence, just being in his presence, they felt better. They believed him. They knew he was different. Some of them knew he was the Son of God. Some of them knew he was the Messiah, but it took them a little while to really know it because they were watching him perform miracles. How could they say no to that? They saw it for themselves. How, he would change, he changed water into wine. He was walking on the water. All these people saw this. This wasn't one person seeing this. This wasn't a small group of just his apostles and his disciples seeing him doing these things. This was mass amounts of people. And yet, the Pharisees, the scribes, and the elders were trying to convince people that he was bad and he was evil. And it worked. It worked. Many of them changed their mind, or they didn't want to have anything to do with him. They did think he was evil. They were just looking for a way to catch him doing something wrong so that they could arrest him and ultimately crucify him. And it worked. They fell for it. Even Pilate, Pontius Pilate, he didn't want anything to happen to Jesus. He tried to say, "I'll give you back a prisoner like I do every year." They wouldn't have it. He couldn't believe it. He was like, "Who are you? Why are they doing this to you?" He sends him over to Herod, who we all know is crazy and evil. Herod didn't want to do anything with Jesus. He sent him back. And then the angry mob chants, crucify him," and that's what happened. And all the people that believed in Jesus and all the people that followed Jesus, they had no voice. They had no way to save him. They were completely pulverized about it. They were completely, just run over, pushed to the side. These lies that they were coming up with about Jesus, his own followers couldn't save him because the other group couldn't stand that he was doing something good and that people wanted to follow him and he was making a difference. And he was changing people's lives and saving their lives in multiple ways. And it just got me to thinking that, obviously, God had a path for Jesus, and this is exactly what needed to happen in order for him to save all of us from our sins. I understand that. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, in this day and age, when we know something to be true, or there's proof of something, there's medical proof, there's proof from our own eyes, there's proof from our own knowledge, there's proof from our own history. And yet you have these people who are, for their own selfish reasons, for their own benefit, whether it be money, whether it be power, whether it be status, so that they can get what they want, they are doing horrible things to people. And why? Well, like I said, it's for those reasons. But for so long, many of us, not all of us, many of us felt like we had to sit by silently. We couldn't say anything. And what ends up happening is our children started getting very hurt from this. But to me, there was a lot of brainwashing and manipulating going on. And what ends up happening is it just ends up hurting and harming mass quantities of people. And I feel like many of us were in a fog, or many of us, I know there was times where I felt like I had duct tape over my mouth, my hands and feet were tied, and I couldn't do a bloody thing. And that's a horrible way to feel. When you see something happening with your own eyes and people around you are convincing you it didn't happen, it makes you feel crazy. They're gaslighting you. They're telling you, you didn't see that happen. And you're thinking, actually, I did. But then you're made to feel crazy. There were also things happening where people would try to do the right thing and get punished, arrested, thrown in jail, thrown in prison for trying to do the right thing. So let's say a person was raised a certain way and they say, oh, this person is going to hurt and harm this other person. I should step in and save the weaker person. But instead of that person becoming a hero, he becomes a criminal because he was trying to save the weaker person, the person in peril, from the bad guy. And the bad guy ends up becoming the good guy. It got very switched. So you ended up with people who were trying to do good getting punished and the bad guys getting rewarded. What on earth were we doing, you guys? What were we doing? We just really lost sight of what we needed to be focusing on, which is the Lord. But it was also a time, like I said, where if we were to speak up, if we were to try to stand up for our rights, we were absolutely pulverized for it. So it put a lot of us in a very bad position. I can speak for myself and say how I handled it was I kept silent. I thought, well, I'll pray about this. I'll ask for God's help and guidance. I know that God it will handle it. Jesus knows the way. I just have to let them handle it and I'll stay out of it. I'll just make it worse if I speak up. But I don't think that's good. None of us want to be punished and none of us want to be treated horribly, but I feel like a lot of us didn't know what to do. And I can speak for myself and say I didn't feel strong enough. I just didn't. And I did pray my little heart out that God would change things and God would fix things. And I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know what my little voice could do. I know even when I started the podcast, there were so many things that I wanted to talk about, but I thought, I'm not going to talk about it because my podcast will be taken away. And then I won't be able to be on my evangelizing mission that I'm on because somebody will take that away from me. I know a lot of people couldn't say the things they wanted to say or do the things they wanted to do. They didn't feel strong enough. They didn't have the backup by humans. And, they didn't want to chant something and be put in jail. I know a lot of people were jailed because they were out doing a peaceful protest in front of abortion clinics because they know in their hearts that abortion is wrong. It's a major sin. They were trying to save people from doing that so that they wouldn't regret what they were doing for their life. They will never get past that. That's always going to be something that they're going to have to live with. And these people were trying to reason with them and talk to them. And what ends up happening? They end up going to prison. They're still in prison. All because they were trying to save somebody's baby. Do you think Planned Parenthood cares about people's babies? No, they don't. They're in the career of murdering babies. That's their career. They do it all day, every day. They don't care. They don't bat an eye. They don't think two thoughts about the future that child could have had. They don't even give people other options. They don't say, hey, you know what? You could end up saving your baby. You could end up giving your baby up for adoption. There's somebody out there that would love your baby. They're trying to give them they were trying to give them other options. But instead they go to jail. Because Planned Parenthood has brainwashed people into thinking that's the only way to make it in life is if you get pregnant, kill your baby. Easy out. Well, God certainly doesn't want that. God doesn't believe in that. God values all life. So I feel like anytime we're doing something that we go, what would Jesus do? Let me look in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Let me go back and read the Gospels and see what Jesus is actually saying about these different subjects or about things that have to do with life and death and sin. Let me go back and look at that and hear from his own words what we should and shouldn't be doing. I very much value the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I believe in it. I think it's a really good guidebook to know what we're supposed to be doing and not supposed to be doing. I don't want to hear it from people on the street. I don't want to hear it from so-called newscasters who aren't really telling the news. They're just saying their opinions. I don't want to know what I should and shouldn't be doing from all those people. I have to remember that I have a conscience and I have rules and ethics and morals that I go by. I'm trying to lead a virtuous life that is blessed by God. All these other people with their craziness and their chaos, we shouldn't be listening to them. Unfortunately, Pontius Pilate had to listen to the angry, chaotic mob, and he had to follow what they wanted instead of being strong and standing up for Jesus. So when we come back, as I do, I'm going to turn this around. Be right back. Let me tell you about all things Fresh Catholic, so buckle up. We have a podcast with weekly topic episodes and Fresh Catholic Daily, the daily Mass readings, on all platforms and YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, rate, and review. That would really help. Our website, freshcatholic.com, has an online store with merchandise and coffee, a blog, comics, info about our pilgrimage to Italy in September of this Jubilee year, and Fresh Catholic courses with educator Charles Merritt, including the Hail Mary, the Our Father, Sin, Sacraments and Grace, Advent, Angels, and Virtues. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Fresh Catholic with short videos every day. Email me at lori@freshcatholic.com. I'd love to hear from you. And please consider becoming a Patreon or sponsor to help support our mission of drawing people to the faith or back to the faith. Phew! Spread the word and join the fun. Thanks so much. Bye. And we're back. So let's talk about moving forward out of all this. I like to do that. I like to move forward. I think the past is in the past. I think we should try to find the positives in things. I think, if you listen to last week's episode, Out of the Darkness into the Light of Christ, there's a lot of people living in darkness. There's a lot of people doing shady things like we've been talking about. And I can't imagine my listeners are in that group, but I think we all know a lot of people that are. And because they're living that sort of lifestyle, we are having to deal with it. We're having to live with it because they are. We're being dragged into things because they want us to be dragged into it. They want us to be dragged into their chaos. They want to be let off the hook for things that they're doing wrong. And that's how they kind of manipulate people and their thinking, because they're thinking, oh, well, I want to do these things, so I'm going to talk this group into thinking it's an okay idea, or jumping on the bandwagon so that we all are in this thing together and we're going to stick together and make everybody else feel crazy and make everybody else feel like they're bad people or Nazis or, anti this, anti that. When actually they are trying to manipulate for their own benefit, either for personal gain, for money, for power, like I said before. So what we need to do is focus on what we can do to not allow that to happen anymore. And if you're noticing, again, the proof is in what's happening in the world right now. So we talked about what was going on prior to COVID, after COVID. It's been a sketchy few years here. It's been very strange to deal with people and things. But moving forward, we have a new administration coming in. Now, I know a lot of people have struggled, are struggling, are going to struggle with President Trump. I understand. And since this episode is called What is Truth? And I'm very honest, I must say, I used to have many problems with Donald Trump. Way before he was in politics, I didn't care for him much. I thought he was very loud and abrasive and aggressive and full of himself and pompous. And I just didn't care for him. I loved his daughter. I thought she was amazing, but I wasn't too keen on Donald Trump. And even in the first election, I couldn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was quite ridiculous. And then I kind of gave him a chance and still didn't care for him much as a person. And then I ended up, the second election, I thought, okay, well, out of the two candidates, I'm going to vote for him because I thought actually he was a good president. Again, I didn't care for him as a person, but as a president, I thought he's the kind of guy I want as a president because he's very firm. He's somewhat unpredictable, which is good for the enemy because they're never quite sure, what he's going to pull. And I think he's very tough. I think he's super smart. I think he's an excellent businessman, good with money, and he's very intimidating. And I think those are things, that are important for a president. I don't need a president to be a teddy bear. I don't need a president to be my best buddy. I need my president to be in charge. And he definitely is a man in charge. Now, he didn't win that election, and that's what was supposed to happen. God wills everything to happen, so he didn't win. And then now because I think everything went off the rails and everything was so chaotic and so hostile and aggressive in our world, and especially in our country, so divided, everything kind of went too far, definitely too far. So I feel like back in the day, people, there's always been wars, there's always been sickness, there's always been problems, like we've said in the past episodes. But there used to be a simplicity to life. There used to be an honesty to life. There used to be more family values intact back in the olden days. There were hardworking people. There were families that, for good, bad, or indifferent, were working together and going through things together. There was a lot of interaction. Our world, bear with me on this, our world was smaller back then. Our little world was small. We weren't so in tune to everything that was going on in every corner of the world. We were involved in our small group. There was more normalcy. Then things kind of started shifting. Like in the 60s and the 70s, things kind of started shifting, and it just snowballed. It started snowballing and snowballing, and things got very out of control. And I feel like it's just gone that way. And now I feel like it went a little bit too far, maybe a lot of bit too far. And what that caused people to do was think, wait a second, what, how can we get back to some normalcy in our lives? And when you have the contrast of a traditional president and a very not traditional president, I don't even know the word I want to use without bashing anybody. You definitely had two different camps. And I think people were fed up with the chaos and thought, I think we're going to go back this direction, being Donald Trump and JD Vance. And when they won, it was quite extraordinary, and it was a landslide, which shows that people were ready for a change back to some normalcy. And I have to say, I've been pleasantly surprised that I think Donald Trump has softened a bit. I think a lot of it has to do with he's getting older. I think he's more assured of himself in a genuine way instead of trying to prove himself. I think he just knows that he means business, and he's respected by many, many people. I think he's surrounding himself with a good group of people. I think JD Vance is stellar. I think that they're going to bring a lot of good old American values back into our lives. I think the things that have been missing from our lives, like God, number one, God has been missing in everybody's life. And it's just glaringly apparent to me that that has been just one of the biggest, most horrific things that has happened in our world, that God has been removed in so many places that we're bound to just spiral out of control and down the tubes. And the people that are talking you out of God, and the people that are talking you out of good family values, and the people that are talking you out of normalcy are the people that are going to benefit from our downfall. So why on earth would you trust them? They're not telling you the truth. I don't even think they know what truth means. And we've been trusting these people or listening to them. I don't know if all of us have been trusting them, but we've been listening to them and going along with their shenanigans for years. And now, all of a sudden, I feel like there's this upbeat attitude, if you notice. Again, go with your own eyes and ears, go out and actually listen and look and see what people are saying. I remember my ex-husband telling me years and years ago, when I first started voting, he said to me, I said, we believe things that people don't believe. We're in the minority. And he said, no, we're not. you're listening to certain people and they're giving you the impression that the whole United States feels the way they do, but that's not true. And he was right. He was 100% right. And when he told me that, all of a sudden it gave me like a confidence and an assuredness of like, oh, you mean a lot of people think the way we do, and a lot of people love God, and a lot of people want good family values, and a lot of people want to do good things for others? Oh, I thought everybody, were doing these kind of crazy things and leading these chaotic lives, and we're the only ones, leading this traditional life. And he said, no, it's not. That's not true. It's who you're listening to. So I really urge you, excuse me, I really urge you to try to block out these deranged voices, these disordered agendas. I really urge you to listen. Again, go read what Jesus has to say. Listen to your priest. Listen to trusted elders of yours. I know that I have huge trust issues. I don't trust anybody. I know the one person I trusted more, the one human person I trusted more than anybody in the world was my beloved Poppy, who passed away in 2014. And he's the only one, honestly, I've ever trusted. And I now have to put my full trust in Jesus, because most people have an agenda and most people have something that's going to benefit them. We have to seek out the people who want the best for us, who want the best for us personally, for our families, for our country, for our world. And that gets back to simplicity, just simplicity of living a good, healthy, spiritually sound, God-loving, holy life. It sounds simple when I say it, but it's not. When there's all this noise and all these people, screaming at you to think like they do. We all know right from wrong. We all know what's good and bad. It's not worth it to align with people that are doing things that are against the Lord and against our commandments and our morals and our ethics. So again, focus on Jesus. Come out of the darkness into the light. Be healthy, spiritually fit, mentally fit, emotionally fit. All the things we've been talking about so far this year. And I'm very hopeful and I'm very excited for this new presidency. I think there's some really amazing things on the horizon. I think we can go out and have pride for our American flag instead of this, I don't even know the word I want to use. We should be saluting our American flag, not other false flags, if you know my meaning. So try to focus on what's right and good and know that God loves you. You can trust in that. That's the truth. The Lord loves you. The people around you who want the best for you and want to see you thrive and want to see you healthy and happy, that's what is truth. That's the truth. So I hope this helps you. A little bit crazy, but we'll see what happens. We'll see, I just feel like I can finally say what I want to say because maybe now we're allowed to speak our minds and say what we know is the truth. Don't lie. Don't let people make liars out of you. Don't let people manipulate. Easy for me to say, my goodness. Don't let people manipulate you. Have a beautiful, blessed week. God, please bless America. Thank you. Love you. Bye.